Welcome to Influential Visions. Here, we interview futuristic leaders who share their deep industry knowledge and business experience with you, ensuring you have your finger on the pulse and your eyes wide open. My name is Nathaniel Schooler, and I am your host today. No matter how many times I listen to the Zoom lady say, this meeting is being recorded, it still makes me smile.
Better than the Uber conference. She gets really sexy. She goes, this meeting is being recorded.
Does she?
You're like, okay, we're here for business, but she doesn't know that. So
yeah, and you are all about the business. And, you know, and for people who don't know you, you are Kristin Zhivago. And this is like, as in Dr. Zhivago with Omar Sharif, who had a brilliant moustache. And who was the lady in there?
Julie Christie, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Julie Christie. And if you don't know that film, you guys, you need to go and watch it. It was a fantastic, classic film, absolutely brilliant. So, you are the president of Zhivago Partners, and you're a digital marketing company. But you were a revenue coach for many years, right? And with all of these problems right now, I think we need to give some thought to the CEOs and entrepreneurs out there that need some help, right? So the title of this is teaching CEOs and entrepreneurs how to survive a crisis without going crazy. So please, I'm going to let you tell me how on earth they do that.
Well, the first thing is to keep yourself sane so that you can continue to lead and calm everybody down, because you're the leader and they need that. Leaders need to be calm. I wrote an article recently about how to keep stress out of your life, and or how to live a stress-free life. And it's really it's something my husband taught me, who's an ex-Marine. And we sailed across 2 Atlantic Oceans, the North and the South, together. We had a boat built in South Africa and sailed it home about 10 years ago, I guess now.
Wow.
And just being with him for 2 months at sea and watching how he operates really taught me a lot. But one of the things you do is you just skip the stress part. Something terrible happens, bad stuff happens to us every single day. You just skip the stress and you go right into find it, face it, fix it, which are the 3 things that we always focus on. You find it, you face it, you fix it. And you do that over and over again. And if you're stuck on something that just won't get fixed, then you F it, which is another F word, which I'm not going to say. So that's really a good formula for life. And it allows your people to realize that you're just going to work on the problem. You're not going to blame anybody. You're not going to get all dramatic about it and hung up. You're just going to fix things over and over again.
Right.
And it makes it a very good, safe place for people to work. So I think that's the first thing, is you have to stay calm yourself. And by the way, stress is a thief. Stress is useless, doesn't make you any more productive, doesn't make you any better. So why even give it any time or attention? Just skip it. And the second thing is, the same advice applies in a crisis as it does to any other time, which is you have customers. They have very specific needs and wants. And if you understand them, if you've actually talked to them, listened to them, interviewed them, I talk about this in my book, then you can figure out what they need now. And so one of the things you should be doing, instead of just sending out a note saying, oh, we're trying to handle this crisis and we're really good. And no, you call them up. You say, how can we help? What are you struggling with? What's your biggest problem right now? Maybe we can help, and try to find ways to help that are somewhat altruistic, but no better way to make friends, just help them out.
Yeah. I'm feeling that as well, but stress is a very difficult thing. I mean, I was talking to Mike Tobin earlier today, and he managed to build a huge cloud business. He merged Telecity with Redbus, which I know you'll know that, right? And they sold that for 3.6 billion. What was that, 10 or something years ago? But he shared some really interesting insights around this as well, you know. But it's very tough if you are stressed. I mean, we've all been through stress, and we all understand how it affects us. But the thing is, what he said is that when he worked for this charity, he created a charity which did a CEO sleep out, so to raise money for homeless children. And there are apparently 60,000 homeless children in the United Kingdom. I didn't even know that, right?
Wow.
And they're couch surfing and whatever, right? But he basically said one of the CEOs that was there basically spoke to him at like 5 or 6 in the morning. And at this point in the morning, there were like foxes and things like this running around, and, you know, like big dogs, right? And, you know, it's not a nice time in the morning, and you're cold and everything else. And so this guy says to Mike, he says, well, you know, I really know what this feels like now. And Mike sort of turned to him. He said, well, to be honest, you don't really, because you know when it's going to end. And that's the major thing. I mean, you know, being out of work and maybe being down to your last can of baked beans, and you don't know if you have baked beans over there, but we have baked beans, and we eat them on toast. You do? Okay. So being down to that, and maybe the last 2 pieces of bread and some tea bags, and saying, well, where am I going to get the next 50 quid to pay for like my next week's worth of groceries and my phone bill? At least, you know, a lot of people, they're getting help from the government, and they're going to be able to move forwards. And what I like is that actually compassion seems to have been brought back to the forefront of society right now. And yes, people are dying. Yes, it's really tough, but actually we're never going to, hopefully never going to get this reset again. So how on earth, you know, people deal with this stress? It's personal, isn't it? It's personal to them, right?
And I've been there, you know, when I was working my way through college, and looking at one can of, what was it, bean sprouts, and I'd never eaten them because they were so bad. Bean sprouts have sort of a sauerkrautish kind of taste to them, and in a can, and an old can wasn't a really good idea, but that's all I had, so I cooked it, and it was terrible. I still remember how that tasted. So I understand what it feels like to be absolutely down and out, and not knowing what's going to happen next, not having any pillow to fall back on. And I think the thing I've learned the most, just all the years that I've been building businesses and helping businesses, and is there's always somebody who needs something. And if you can figure out something that you can do for someone else that they'd be willing to pay for, which is really where entrepreneurism comes from. I mean, that's what happens. You see a problem and you think, wow, I could solve that problem. And it could be just something as simple as providing some kind of service for someone. And as long as you don't mind being of service, which I think is the main reason for starting a business anyway, there's money always around. There's always somebody that has enough money to say, okay, well, that would be worth it for me if you did that for me. So you have to look around and be constantly thinking, how can I help?
Yeah. So it's back to the customer journey, leading in the right way, so that you are a servant leader, right? Like that's what we want now, right? We want servant leaders who turn around and they ask people questions, and then they help fix problems, right? I mean, that's in essence kind of what we're talking about.
And honestly, I talk about this a lot, but this is about love. I'm not ashamed to say that this is all about love. This is about taking care of people. And love is more than feelings. It's a decision. It's a commitment. It's deciding that you're going to be responsible for someone else's safety, happiness, whatever they need, and figuring out how to help. And that's really what love is. So
free hugs.
Yeah.
I'm just wearing a t-shirt, and you were trying not to look at me leaning back with this smiley face with free hugs, right?
Yeah, well, it's free virtual hugs now, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's what you're saying definitely makes a lot of sense. But in terms of like us managing our own individual stress, yeah, there are certain I mean, I'm big into Tai Chi, right? Like that's my exercise of choice. I've been doing that, more than half my life, right? So that gives me a feel good hormone, yeah, when I train it, right? But the problem is that sometimes life gets in the way, and you perhaps don't have time. So you need to find some other things that maybe help you, or someone who you can call, something you can do, right? Maybe like listen to some classical music, or watch some sort of church service, or because we're all different, aren't we, in the way that we like to de-stress, right, or avoid it. Because you said don't give it any thought, but the problem is that when you're asked a question that you can't answer immediately, and you can see that the idea you had in your mind of building a business around a certain idea and a certain product isn't going to happen because you don't have the right answer. Someone has that answer, and someone has that solution in your network. Yeah. And you probably have it within yourself already if you just take the time to think about it, right? I find the whole thing actually really, really interesting, really exciting as well,
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that it's easy to catastrophize something. So, for example, my husband's been through cancer 3 times now, fatal cancer, lung cancer, and the first one was head and neck cancer. He had 5% chance. And we got through that together, and then we had the boat built and sailed across 2 oceans.
Wow.
And then he got lung cancer, and they took out part of his lung, the bottom lobe of his lung, and a big tumor, and then that cancer spread. So we're just coming out of that now. They used one of the new immunotherapy drugs, the only thing that actually saved him from it. But he's, again, an ex-Marine, and he just decided at the very beginning that this wasn't going to beat him. So he went after it and fought it hard. The thing that was hard for me, I knew I was going to take care of him. That was not an issue. I love the guy. I'm still in love with him after all these years. But there were times when he was so close. And so, I mean, it was like looking at a concentration camp person. Wow. And trying to keep him alive with tube feedings. And I spent 8 hours in the kitchen while I was working for IBM, wow. Making stuff for the tube. And that went on for months, and you don't know what the ending is going to be. You can't tell what the ending is going to be. So it's so easy to get into, oh my God, he's going to die. I mean, you just, I'm going to lose him. Yeah. But then that, if you do that, if you catastrophize and stay there, it becomes a mantra that you're saying to yourself, and you're feeding the wrong mantra. So I developed, there was another mantra. I'm into God. I love God. I just, personal relationship kind of thing. I'm not into big formalized religion, but I really believe there is a higher power. And one of the things I heard the first time was, this is going to be the hardest thing that you've ever gone through together. And in the end, you're going to be stronger than ever because of it. And I just held on to that for months and months and months. And this time, when it came back the third time, I heard, you're going to fight and you're going to win. And so I just said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I held on to that. And so I think, if you really believe in what you're doing, and you believe that people really need it, and you really are helping people, and it feels good when it works, and you'll have your bad days, but overall it feels really good. That's the mantra that you hold on to. That's what you say to yourself. Words are incredibly important. I mean, the first thing in the Bible is whatever was in the beginning was the word. I mean, this is all about thinking about outcomes and how you can help. And the rest of it is just noise. It really is. And when you fill your life with that, it gets to be a really nice life.
I agree. God actually told me to start this podcast. No, I'm serious.
Good for him. No,
I tell you the story?
I'm not laughing at you.
Let me tell you this really brief story, yeah, because it's quite a long story. But So I was on a podcast before. I was co-founder of Next Level podcast with an IBM futurist, because I'm an IBM futurist. We've got this IBM connection, right?
Yeah, I was very impressed. Good for you.
Yeah, it's cool, right? So they hired me to write some content for Think Marketing when they had this Think Marketing website around marketing.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And so Garen Kilpatrick with Next Level Podcast, we actually launched that together because he's also an IBM futurist. So we launched that together, and that was great, right? And he taught me like how to edit audio files, loads of cool stuff around marketing, and then and writing as well, and blogging and stuff. And then I was like, okay, we parted our ways, and then I literally about a year later, I'll never forget it. I was quite down in the dumps. I was feeling pretty bad, and life wasn't really going the way I wanted it to. And I heard these words in my head saying, "You must start a podcast." And this was let me see, September 2018. Yeah. So just to give you how fast this happened, right? So I heard these words and I was like, oh, yeah. Didn't really take any notice. But then I heard the words again. And it was like, no, you must start a podcast. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. So within a couple of days, I built a website, and I took an episode from the one I did with Mike Tobin. That was the first episode I did with him. And it was inspirational. And I sat there and I listened to this and I put it on my new website, and I was all pleased with myself. And I relaxed, yeah. And then I heard the words again, and it said, "You're not working hard enough." I swear, I'm not joking, yeah. And then so how many days later? So then I was like, all right, I'll take your advice, I'll do it. So then I dug out another three episodes, booked in some interviews, and I basically launched one episode per day for a whole week.
Wow.
Okay? With full transcriptions, pictures, everything. Yeah. Right. And then it got to Christmas, and I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I can relax. I hear the words in my head saying, no, you can't. You can have 3 days off. Serious.
I love
Serious.
It.
You can have 3 days off. And you got to cook dinner with your father and go and eat with him. The wine was bad on Christmas Day because he had some old bottle of wine from like 1965 or something. He's like, oh yeah, Nat, but it's okay. So I was like, no. Okay, I'm getting back to work. So I got back to work and started, and I had to do it again. So I did 6 more episodes the next week. For the following week. As soon as everyone went back to work in January, I had 6 episodes that were in the pipeline to go, 1 per day. I think one day I did 2, yeah? And it nearly killed me. But I got to Wednesday. I'm serious. This is amazing, yeah? I got to Wednesday, and the world's largest ebook producer contacted me on LinkedIn. And they said, we want you to help us with a series of expert talks, right? And we'd like you to produce some expert talks. So I thought, oh, that's exciting. So I spoke to this lady, the editor, and I said, right, you need to give me 20 grand. And she said, I'll talk to the CEO, yeah. And they said no. Right. But then we ended up making a deal. Okay. And in my head, I just said, so first of all, I said, so who are your clients? And she said, KPMG, Lidl, banks, pharmaceuticals, engineering firms, the NHS, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I put my microphone on mute and I was jumping up and down. Yeah. Screaming. Yeah. And so I pushed the microphone, and then she said, okay. So I said, so how's this going to work? She says, well, we'll pay you a commission, life of the content, da, da, da. So I was like, so, okay. And the figure, I said, so how much do you think I'm going to really make per episode? She gave me this figure, and in my mind, I wasn't motivated. So I times this figure by 100 in my head. And I said, well, how many are you going to create? She said, 200. I said, okay, I will do 100. Yeah. And I attempted to do 100 podcasts in 90 days.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
For 2 sites. her site and my site, okay, shared some of this content, right? And it killed me. I got to like 90 something episodes and my dad was still hassling me. Hey, Nat, because he's from MIT. He went to MIT. He's a professor. Yeah. And he was like, hey, Nat, have you done those podcasts yet? And I was like, no, Dad, I haven't done the 100 yet. Don't hassle me about this anymore. I can't think about it. Yeah. But it's like, without that divine guidance, yeah, I would not be sitting here interviewing you on this amazing show that I'm just about to skyrocket.
I don't know. People who don't believe there is a God just think, I'm not angry at anybody. I'm never angry at anyone, but I feel sorry for them because there is, and when you hear those things, and I've heard it many, many times now, you know, it's not you. You know, it's not what you would have said to yourself.
No.
It's just something else. And I've had him, I mean, one time I was like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? And his answer was, your to-do list.
But it is amazing.
It's all right in front of you. And okay, it's not a big deal. Like, you know, don't get excited about it or anything. It's just your life. You're already doing it. Do it. Just do it.
Yeah. Well, my church that I've been going to, they've moved everyone out of the church, obviously, because they've had to close. But what's happening is that the homeless people in my city are going there for all their meals during the day right now. And the clergy are cooking for them. Yeah.
That's very good.
And they're doing Facebook and YouTube live videos, which are amazing. They did one with a guitar player. It was amazing for the first ever YouTube live. I'll send you the link. Yeah.
Please do.
It blew my mind to pieces. Yeah. So if anyone's listening to this, you want to check it out and you're feeling down in the dumps and you do have some sort of belief, I'll drop the link somewhere and you can on the website and you can check it out. But this isn't about God. This is about not going crazy, right? So whatever works for you is basically what we're saying. Yeah. Whatever works.
Well, yeah, there's two things though. There's what you were talking about where you find your peace somehow, you get grounded again, you know, however you do it.
Yeah.
Because you do have to stay grounded. As a leader, you've got to be the calm one. You can't be running around tearing out your hair. It just doesn't work. It spreads the grief. But the other thing is that there is always opportunity out there in any marketplace. I remember when I was working for a company that focused on security. They were building the whole encryption system and RSA and all the stuff they use now, because we were basically, I've been in tech long enough to be at the beginning of voicemail, email, spreadsheets. I mean, all that stuff, microcomputers, we called them back then, PCs. Yep. So I've seen this stuff come up and what happens with it. And the one thing this one guy told me at this company that did security was there's something like, I think he said $3 trillion a day going through the banking system. And this was years ago. So if I looked up the stat now, I'm sure it's much greater. So my first book, which was called Rivers of Revenue, What to Do When the Money Stops Flowing, was all about the fact that there's always somebody somewhere willing to pay for something. And if you can figure out how to take what you do and what you know and your people and everything and figure out, first of all, ask them, because you can't guess about this. This is one of the things we talked about before we talked officially here was what's the biggest mistake that CEOs and entrepreneurs make. And the biggest mistake is that they assume that they know everything about their customer, and they have these personas that they've built, and they're all absolutely, well, I got news for you. I've interviewed thousands and thousands of customers after I talk to the CEOs and all the people management, and they always say, oh, these are the 10 most important things to our customers. Absolutely built into the cake. That's how they run their business. And then you go and you interview customers and the list is completely different. There might be a few items in common, but they're at the bottom instead of the top or whatever. And so you take that information back to the CEOs and they go, oh, they have a head slapping moment, and it pivots them back to where they're actually taking care of the customer. I remember when I was working for IBM over a 12-year period, I was there before Lou Gerstner, during Lou Gerstner, and after Lou Gerstner. And that guy understood the customer because he was a customer. And he also spent an inordinate amount of time, even though he managed a company with 300,000 people, being out there with customers. And during the time he was CEO, the things that people said in meetings at IBM started to change. I remember doing diagrams with IBM executives, and they'd always put IBM in the center, and then everything else revolved around IBM. And I'd go up and I say, no, the customer's in the center, and IBM revolves around the customer. So that's the biggest mistake. I don't care how big or small you are. Every single person assumes they're scared to talk to customers. They're worried they're going to hear things they don't want to hear. And it's a mistake. It is the biggest mistake. You have to be open and humble and just listen and hear what they have to say. And it will shock you how many opportunities there are that you were missing because you didn't understand what they actually really specifically wanted. And in this day and age, people are very specific about what they want.
Yeah, very much so. It makes me smile because you come from the same time period in technology as my business associate, Mike, and both of you have seen everything from the before Apple, from the Osborne or pre-Osborne computer.
I had one.
My dad had one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So I carried it to Comdex. It was as big as a sewing machine.
Yeah, they're huge, and the screen was like tiny, right?
Oh, it was like, this big.
Yeah. My dad had one. My brother's still got that. He's got that. But so, both of you kind of understand the same kind of thing. And Mike worked within a partner, but then actually started building a lot of groups on LinkedIn and helping doing marketing for partners and also for the software companies as well. Yeah. But like, how do you stay sane then in the midst of chaos?
Well, another thing we always talk about is you don't internalize their dysfunction. I'm writing an article about that right now too. It's one of the most important pieces of advice I ever got from my husband, which is, okay, they're freaking out. Everybody's freaking out right now.
It's them.
It's them.
Yeah.
And when you're empathetic and sympathetic, you tend to take it in, and then it messes you up. So they've infected you with their crisis. And you really, it's an amazing thing. And everybody handles it differently, how you actually make that. But to me, it's like you said, they're over there, I'm here, and I'm going to stand here in my space and be okay in my space. I'm going to observe, I'm going to help, but I'm not going to internalize it. And that really has changed my life because I've always been very sympathetic, and they end up playing and playing and playing in your head. They become the big problem that you can't solve, and it affects everything else you do. And as a leader, you can't afford that because you obsess, you become unbalanced. You're not taking care of the day-to-day and the people you're responsible for. So you really have to just keep them there and help them. And it makes such a difference in your life. It really does. It just makes you so much stronger and so less stressful to just have that perspective.
Very much so. And then you can radiate your positivity.
Exactly.
And you don't get sucked into that. It's a matter of just getting older and controlling your emotions, right? But we get to a certain age, don't we? Where, it happened to me almost, I don't know, I'm 43. Yeah. So it happened to me I don't know, maybe a few months ago, 6 months ago or something. But sometimes I still get affected by things, and then I need to go away and reset. Yeah. And just say, no, I'm not letting this in. I'm going to have a bath, put my feet up, because they talk about great leaders have high testosterone and low cortisol, don't they? So if anyone's listening to this, they should watch that. It's Amy Cuddy, is it? Or Cundy, her talk on YouTube, right? And it talks about that kind of stuff. And how they did an experiment with people actually. They did a load of fake interviews for a job that didn't exist. And have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
So yeah, and what they did is they basically said to these people, right, okay, you're going to get interviewed by this person, and you can adopt 2 poses before you go in there. Some of you are going to sit like this and really close yourself down and lean forwards in the chair with your hands on your knees and your hands in your head in your hands. And the other people are going to sit up, and you're going to hold your hands up above your head, or you're going to stand in the bathroom with your hands on your hips in a power pose. Yeah. And they actually found that they basically changed the way that these people reacted to
Oh, of course.
the interviewer based upon the cortisol and the testosterone, because having a big open pose, if people can see this on video, you see what I'm doing, but opening your arms really wide, putting your feet on the desk is a really masculine kind of open pose. Yeah. And closing down is a really defensive position, and that affects your brain. Yeah. So,
Oh, yeah.
you know, there's a lot of great research out there like that. And like, I'm super interested in it because I like to be in control of my emotions. And that's something that if I wasn't, yeah, I mean, I was supposed to move. I was going to go and see my girlfriend in Poland. Yeah. And, you know, I was going to drive over there. I nearly had my car packed. I booked my tunnel ticket, and I booked a hotel. I booked the Sheraton for £130 for one night in Berlin on the way. I was like, yes, I booked the Sheraton. I'm going to get in there and enjoy the spa and have a swim. Yeah. And do you know what? If I'd have actually realized that situation and let it internalize, yeah, I would not be sitting with you here today. I would not have filled up my diary with more than 1 podcast per day. And I wouldn't be in conversations with a lot of big tech companies to sell them what I have. Right. So, you know, just take the advice. Anyone that's listening, listen to this lady. She knows what she's talking about.
Well, it's called the School of Hard Knocks.
It is. Pain. Pain is the biggest teacher.
Oh, right? Yeah. I had to get over myself. I really didn't get over myself until I was in my 50s. And then life really started.
Wow. I'm kind of I'm becoming more mature, but it still isn't easy. It's still not easy.
No, it's never easy, but you develop habits. You start just, this is how I live, you know, the not internalizing their dysfunction and find it, face it, fix it, and do the next right thing, which is another thing my husband always says. You know, there were times on that sale for 2 months, people always say, oh, were there any storms? And I'm like, okay, we were in the Atlantic by ourselves for 2 months.
You're kidding, right? No storms. What are these people
really
on?
Yeah, there were some storms. I mean, there was one time when this big sail in the front fell down. It chafed at the top, went down in front of the boat. This is a catamaran. And if you have something pulling you at the front like that, the boat will somersault. So you're dead, basically.
Yeah.
And so I banged 3 times, which was our signal to each other. He was sleeping. I was on watch. We got out, and it took us about 6 hours to get that sail up. The first thing he did was tie it so that it was off to the side of the hull instead of under the trampoline.
Yeah.
So it took us all those hours, and he just kept saying, don't rip the sail and don't fall overboard. Don't rip the sail and don't fall. But we made it, you know, and that taught me, that trip where you're so self-reliant, it's just you and the ocean. There's nothing else out there. I mean, it's empty. And you spend a whole night fighting a storm where the wind's this way 1 minute and that way the next minute, and you have to adjust the sails constantly all night, and you're being battered and wet and cold. And it teaches you things. And I guess one of the things it teaches you is that you can make it through. And that's one of the things that we should say to everybody today is, we're going to get through this.
Yeah, we are. We are. And, you know, you're facing, some of you, the toughest times in your life that you've ever faced. Yeah. Your whole career has disappeared overnight. I mean, I was in the drinks industry. Yeah. I struggled in the last recession. It was very, very tough. And I remember being parked outside the job center. Yeah. And I went to the job center, and this is before I became self-employed and said, I'm going to create my own life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I basically parked my motorcycle. Yeah. I had a Triumph triple 950cc motorcycle.
Nice. Yeah.
In red. It's called a T595 Daytona. Yeah. if anyone's a bike fanatic. And it had 595 in the number plate as well. It was exceptionally cool, and it was really noisy, and I just felt like the man. Yeah. So I rode there. It took me like half an hour or whatever to get there, and I parked it on the pavement outside the job centre, right? Okay. I was thinking, I'm going to save myself £3 parking. Yeah. So I parked it right next to the wall, and it was 7 foot wide, the pavement. Yeah. I came out, and a parking attendant had given me a ticket. Right. And do you know what? If you're listening to this, I dislike you incessantly. You are a disgrace. No, I'm kidding. You were doing your job. You're probably on commission, but there we are. But like, so I know what it's like, yeah, to have to change careers, yeah, right?
Yeah.
And it isn't an overnight process. You don't just wake up one morning and go, oh, I'm going to change careers, yeah? If it's forced upon you, you need to take whatever opportunities come, but you also need to have faith in what you're doing and think about, you know, what you really want to do in life, because these things can help you. But the problem is, when you're really stressed out of your mind, sometimes you need someone to be kind and to offer you some work or a conversation. I mean, I never forget driving along, and I was driving along, and this chap from a cider manufacturer, bottle fermented, like champagne method cider, yeah, like how you make champagne, right? So you put the cork in the bottle with a big handle on this machine, and then he passes you the bottle, and then you put a screw, you put the champagne stopper on top, which winds itself up, yeah, and it shrinks this foil and everything on the bottle. I tell you what, so I was driving along, and he said, he stopped me, flashed me, and he said, what's your hourly rate? Very posh chap. What's your hourly rate, old chap? I said, I sat there and I thought, I don't know. I'm serious. I didn't know what my hourly rate was, because I've been so used to getting an employment, benefit, you know, in a job for so long. So I said, oh, £10 an hour. This was 13 years ago or something. Yeah. And he said, oh, okay, I've got some work for you. See you at mine at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we'll start work. And I tell you what, I worked for him for 2 days. Yeah. Absolutely murdered me. It was the hardest work, yeah, that I think I've ever done, because I woke up after the first day, and where I've been pulling this handle on this 1960s machine, yeah, like one whole side of my back was killing me, yeah. But I was like, do you know what? I need the money. I'm going to go and work, yeah. And that gave me back some self-esteem that I needed, yeah, because we're all feeling like we've lost something, yeah. And the fact is that, yeah, so many people are stuck indoors. They can't go anywhere. It's like, well, actually, why don't you just think about what you really want to do in life? Take the time, study, plan, think about it. In an ideal world, where do you want to be in 5 years? And then try to work backwards. And I know it's not easy, but, you know, opportunity, you need to be brave. Get out there and do something. And don't listen to anyone that tells you that you can't do it. That's absolutely my advice. That's why I left my wife, yeah.
Not going to comment on that. I know when I'm off topic, so that's we're
not going there. So
yeah, not going there.
So question is, how to live a stress-free life? That's the last question.
Well, everything I've already said. Don't internalize their dysfunction. Skip the stress stage. It's a waste of time. It just make you feel bad. Make everybody else around you feel bad. It just doesn't do anything. Doesn't help you with anything. Just makes things worse. And know that there is always opportunity if you are in that open, expansive mode instead of this mode. There's always something that you can do to help somebody else. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to be willing to pay for it. And that's basically what runs the world.
Yeah, I agree. But don't take every opportunity that comes to you, because there are the sharks. There are the people that want to just get your time for free. They want to get you to do stuff for free.
Don't work with jerks.
Don't work with jerks. Yeah. And if they
Yeah.
sincerely want you to do better, then they will help you. And you might need to work for free for a little while to offer your services, to learn some new skills. And that, you know, we've all had to do that over the years. Yeah. But once you've got skills, people pay for them. It's very simple, really. So
how the world works.
What we say in England is keep your pecker up.
That's good. I like that.
And listen to some of these other episodes. You know, we've got so many amazing episodes the past few days. You're going to be in great company because I'm going to post this right next to Mike Tobin's one. So
good.
I'm probably going to do his one today, yours tomorrow. So
okay, sounds great.
And then we're going to grow this very quickly. It's going to be quite fun. And you've been such a lovely guest. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. It was fun talking to you and hearing your stories. They were good.
And yours. Thanks for listening. Please make sure you share this episode with your friends and business connections too. And don't forget to drop us a review wherever you listen. Thank you.